certification. How do we, what do they mean by that? Okay, all right, fair enough. Anybody else? Interjections?
Well, is it about the certification process at all?
Yes. Okay, so a certification is not called a certification, let's put it that way. What they called it is welder qualification record, okay? That's technically a certification. Now, welder qualifications, let me make sure I tell you what I mean. So a welder qualification becomes qualified to a code or standard, okay? So many codes and standards have welder qualifications that are general, you know, for AWS, D11, SMAW, GMAW, FCAWS, a welder can be qualified on a 1-inch V-groove plate in the vertical and overhead positions and be generally qualified, okay? But other codes and standards, they don't have that overall certification or qualification. You must be qualified to a particular WPS. Okay, so D17.1, you must be qualified to particular WPSs. Okay, does that make sense? So particular joints, particular, you know, things that are made, you have to be, it has to be that way. Okay, so, you know, we have to look at it in, all right. Now remember, a certification doesn't mean that you don't take a weld test when you go apply for a job. A certification means, yes, I'm able to weld 2 plates and they didn't fall apart and I didn't mess them up too bad, okay? It keeps the door open long enough for you to show them what you got, okay? There's many people who, you know, have certifications, but they go down to weld a product or something and it doesn't work, okay? Most companies want you to certify particularly in whatever they're doing, okay? So that way you guys understand what's going to be asked of you. Does that make sense? No questions, comments, snotty remarks? No? Boy.
Well, I mean, okay, say, give an example of like a fabrication shop.
Right.
A fabrication shop, would they, what kind of certification would they do there? I guess, like, say it's.
Well, I mean, it depends. Well, let's think about a motorcycle shop. Okay, now let's think about it. They must have DOT inspect every single motorcycle that leaves it if they do custom motorcycles. Yes. They must stamp on that cross member all of the identification. They have to make sure that it is within codes and standards. They may go under D8.8, which is an automotive fabrication code. Okay, so that might be something very particular. We might be welding sheet material. We might be doing da-da-da-da-da. So they want to make sure that we are welding it to a specific code or standard, right? To make sure that when somebody gets on that motorcycle, it's not going to break with them going down the road at 80 miles an hour, right? We have to kind of look at all of those different things.
What if it's like a lowrider? And it's
Same
more
thing.
of a-
Same. Well, I mean, so like usually a general certification covers most everything. But if we're doing something very, very particular, the one that I normally get a lot, and believe it or not, is for sign companies. And I'm talking about sign, okay? It's usually the signs that go on the side of the buildings, okay? And their welders must be qualified in aluminum MIG and aluminum TIG, as well as any of their installers must be stick certified. Because in different areas, outside of California, they have strict standards. They don't want anything falling off the side of the building, right? So I wanna make sure that that guy, he knows how to weld that to wherever it needs to go. Whether it's a signpost or what have you. They also wanna make sure that they're certified to aluminum, MIG, and TIG, but we also know that most aluminum isn't pre-qualified. So then we have to have them certified to a particular WPS to make sure that they're welding safely. Yes, makes sense? Better? Idea, thought? Okay, so, I don't know, how do you guys you wanna do some blueprints?
Actually, blueprints is good. I mean, I had a question about GMAW.
Okay.
And the transfer metal process with how they have like different metal transfer processes.
Yes.
How do you manipulate that when adjusting everything? I mean, because I understand the descriptions of how it goes across the gap, but how do you control that? How do you do those different types of processes? I just didn't kind of understand like how.
Some machines actually have it built in. Others, it requires you to turn it up way high. The only process that's, how could I say, pre-qualified for AWSD 1.1 is GMAWP. It's a pulse, and it's pulsed because it needs to get extremely hot. Short circuit does not get hot enough to do any type of structural material. Okay, now, what is our requirement for structure? What is the size from what to what?
As far as the material?
Right, so we know that anything from
3.
1/4 inch up is considered structural. 1/4 inch and below is sheet. Okay, so when we talk about structure, we're talking about thicker materials. We're talking about sheet, we're talking about thinner materials. So usually GMAW short circuit S is going to be used for thinner materials because it doesn't have quite as much amperage and penetration.
That's something to have like at the house or something small.
Well, no, I mean, no,
right?
you can still
right?
use it. So we see it a lot in auto body collision. We see it in duct work. We see it in different ways.
Small things that are.
Well, think about thinner.
Yeah.
Okay, not exactly small, but thin.
Car stuff.
That's work like thin sheet metal?
Thin sheet metal, yes. Okay, so usually we don't have good enough penetration when we're talking about thicker materials. So if I'm going to use the D11 and I want to use GMAW short circuit, is it pre-qualified? No. So that means what? If it's not pre-qualified, what do I have to do if I want to use that process?
You have to test.
I have to test it. I have to qualify it. And here's the other caveat. It must be done by an inspector. You just can't say, I think we're going to do this. Because, like for me, I have to work with a lab. There are certain things that's out of my scope. So even though I'm a radiography interpreter, I can't take the pictures, but I can read them. I can't do some of the non-destructive testing, but I can read them. Okay, so we have to kind of like, you gotta pick and choose your battle. Okay, so do we want to think about a little bit of blueprint today, or are we good? Talk to me.
Blueprint's always good.
All right, so we're going to talk about some lines. Not those kind of lines. Okay, so. All right, so there's a couple of different types of lines. Let me see, get the marker out. That way you guys can kind of differentiate. All right, so let's start with the basics. Okay, so the first line is called an object line. This is a thick line. This shows shows the outside of the part or object that I'm looking at. Okay? So remember we talked about top, front, and side? Okay, so if I draw something like this is an object line, right? And we know this is probably a plate, at least from the top, right? Okay, so now the next one is hidden, okay? This is a dashed line. Hidden lines tell me that there might be an edge of a part below this. So if you see a hidden line, what would this show? This is showing that there's an edge of a part below this. Oh, this isn't a plate by itself. There's something underneath it. Okay, so this shows me the edge of a part behind something. It is hidden. Who would have thought, right? Okay, the next one is called a center line. Why would I need a center line?
To know where the center of something is.
Oh, my goodness. Okay,
Good.
good one. Okay, so we'll see long, short, long. And if I can do it right. So you'll see something like that. We'll also see it if we need something that's symmetrical, even if it's a square, we can show a center. Usually though, you'll see it in like a circle or an arc. Okay? All right, make sure I got all my lines in here. Ah, the dimension line. So this one is dimension. So the dimension line can look like that, or it can even look like that. So we're gonna put a number in here like this, or we can do it like this and we'll have the extension lines. Okay, so dimension lines tell me what?
The dimension.
The size, right? So, the only break that a dimension has is usually for the center, okay, for the number itself. Okay? Now, extension line. How big is it? When I put my hands like this, what am I doing?
Showing.
I'm extending, right, my hand to show you this is how big it is. Okay? That's what an extension line does. So, our extension lines are not going to touch our object. They're extending it to show this is the edge of my part. And then I'm going to put my dimension in there like that. Or I can even go like this. Okay, so I can use it this way or this way. Does that make sense? Okay, so this is a, this is an extension. And these are the these extend the part. All right, so the other one is called the leader line. The leader line says what? It leads!
It's the leader.
It's the leader! Follow the leader! Okay, what does the leader do? The leader will point. Okay? Sometimes it has an arrow. Other times, it has a little dot on the end. The dot on the end usually represents a surface. Surface, we'll say A. Okay? So that goes there. It's the leader. Follow the leader. It's telling me about things. It might be giving me a part name, a dimension, wherever it's going. It's leading me to where I need to go. That way, right? Okay. I'll make sure we got it all.
So-
What does an object line do?
Show the object of the line, of the,
Outside of the part, right?
yeah.
Okay, so this is usually a thick,
Part.
solid line. Hidden line, what does a hidden line do?
Usually under or just hidden from.
It's hidden from my front view, right?
Yeah.
So it's hidden from view, but I need to know that there's something behind it. So let's give another example. See if I can do this. And okay, so this would be my top view. But if I start to look at it in other views, does that make sense? Can you guys see what it is? It's a lap joint. I want to see this plate down here, right? So I'm showing you that's how far it needs to be. So you may actually have an extension that comes from there, right? Showing you, oh, hey, this is 6 inches from here to here. So you know how far that has to be, right? So that's what we use the hidden line for. All right, center. What does the center line do?
Center of the object.
Very good. You guys, at least you guys see. I'll make sure I get some easy ones in there. That way you guys get some right. Okay. All right. Dimension.
Shows how big it is.
How big is the part? Okay. Extension tells me how really big is it. We're extending the part to show you this is exactly where I want you to go. Okay. Any other questions? Concerns?
For why would the center line wouldn't be that useful?
Circles, holes, plug and slot. Maybe I just need to know where the center of a part is to base it. Because remember, when we're starting to work with a lot of different configurations, we may base it off of a center line. We may base it off of an edge, right? Because we may need to measure from somewhere. So usually the center's good.
Is it like with the pitch, like how many, there's like how many, or maybe I have the wrong word. Just that like center on center, like when you're doing
Yeah,
like center on center, so you need to know where that center is in order to measure correctly to put the weld in the right place.
Exactly. So there's the word escapes me right now, but it's the relationship. Is this a center to center relationship, or is this a center to surface relationship? How are we looking at the information that we have, and how are we applying it to what we're trying to make? Ultimately, is what happens. Okay. So we're using all of the information here to put together a part, right? And all of the little things that they give us is going to help us make sure that the part is done correctly or whatever we're making, you know? All right, perfect example. House. A house is framed 16 inches on center, right? All your studs, 16 inches on center. Well, I better know where the center of the room is because I'm going to build out. Exactly that. Okay, any other questions? Yes, you look like you had one. Maybe?
How about if there's two hidden lines behind each other? Like say there's another line, there's another hidden piece behind that hidden line.
Okay, so like it's stacked like this.
Exactly.
We'll just add it wherever the hidden line is. Yeah, so we can have multiple hidden lines. Yeah, that's perfectly fine. All right, anything else, guys? All right, well, I'm working on some merchandise for us. We'll have some really cool stuff coming on soon. But make sure you guys give me a like and a subscribe so that we can actually be live. All right, thank you guys. Yay!
Please like and subscribe.
Weld the world.